Probably the worst tragedy in the history of the British caving happened more than 50 years ago in Craven. On a lovely Saturday 50 years ago saw 6 men excitedly setting out to explore the furthest reaches of a pothole labeled as one of the toughest challenges in the Yorkshire Dales. They were all experienced cavers and knew the risks, but with the weather set fair, they eagerly anticipated a thrilling trip down Mossdale Caverns on Coniston Moor near Grassington. The dangers presented by attempting to recover their bodies were deemed too severe, along with the 6 remaining underground in the limestone system high on the fells of Upper Wharfdale. It is said to be located in the Yorkshire Dales National Park in northern England. The Mossdale Caverns were first explored in 1941 by spelunker Bob Leakey. According to the park's website, the Mossdale tracks over 6 miles underground, with several passages only a few inches high. They were making the cavern a challenge even for professional cavers. However, all the skill in the world could not prevent disaster when in 1967, 7 spelunkers went in right before a downpour. There is a retrospective in The Independent that describes how the caverns, naturally riven with sumps even on dry days, flooded just within minutes. One caver even turned back and lived, however the other 6 were swept away into the deepest recesses. And despite a headline-making recovery effort, the danger was too great. The Independent reported that the bodies remain in the cave till this day. The Mossdale Caverns permanently highlighted the dangers of spelunking. Today, the Council of Northern Caving Clubs clearly warns that Mossdale Caverns is a seriously flood-prone cave, with many passages with only a few minutes into the entrance filling to the roof in flood and passages further into the cave sumping with only a small rise in river levels. The Mossdale Caverns must only be considered following at least 2 days of dry weather and with absolute certainty of no rain during your trip. However, that June 24 in 1967 was to show how Mother Nature can be a very cruel blow. None of those men knew that they were to never see their friends or their families again. They were all left to die together in Mossdale, which was their last resting place. The 6 men are still entombed in the pothole, and the coroner has ruled the cave should be sealed. Then, 3 years later, friends moved their bodies to be together at Sanctuary. They were 19-year-old William Frakes of Eldwick, Colin Vickers, who was 23 from Kenley Mount, Bradford, 26-year-old David Adamson from York Road, Harworth, Geoffrey Borrow, 24, of Swinton, John Ogden, 21, of Curedon Street, Colne, and then the youngest of all was a 17-year-old Michael Ryan of Dean Close Roadsway from Bradford. Colin Vickers was left behind a 2-year-old daughter, Rachel Taylor, who was now age 52 and will be attending a special remembrance service on Sunday, June 25 at Coniston Church. The tragedy was to strike again for her family about a year later when Rachel suffered life-threatening injuries in a road accident that has disabled her ever since. Her father's death was such an overwhelming tragedy for her young mother that she could hardly speak of it, and at the same time, Rachel only came to know the full heartbreaking news and the details slowly over several years. She said, "I got to know about it gradually through contact with the Upper Wharfdale Fell Rescue Association, who have been very kind as well as supportive and have taken me up to the site on several occasions." On the 50th anniversary, Rachel even planned to read one of her poems at the service. It was dedicated to her father's memory from a book of her verse, published to raise some money and awareness for the Upper Wharfdale Fell Rescue Association. "It is about wanting to know what it's like to be in a cave. I'm taken into the pothole, and I am terrified but then reassured by a voice I believe is my father saying, 'Hello, Rachel, it's me.' And she also believes that she has some of the adventurous spirits of her dad, having abseiled down Ribblehead Viaduct twice. Moreover, the details of the biggest ever mounted cave rescue has been well documented, perhaps the most comprehensive compiled by Howard Driver, the archivist at the UWFRA. Then, at the age of 22, Howard Driver was a member of the underground support team and a ditch digger, and the material he has collated, when it was laid out, stretches around 2 long-sided tables. He and Chris Baker, his colleague, who was at the forefront of the rescue bid, can still clearly recall their shock when seeing the extent of the flooded cave. However, as Chris said, you always have to have optimism and to believe that you will still find the chamber trapped, but they waited safely in a chamber. He also said, "The cavers knew Mossdale extremely well as they knew the dangers. We should remember that they were caught out by freakish weather. A team of 10 cavers had entered Mossdale at about 2:30 p.m., but 4, James Cunningham, Morag Forbes, Colette Lord, and John Shepard, were bound only for Rough Chamber on a sightseeing trip. The other 6 embarked on the grueling, energy-sapping journey deeper into the cavern. Furthermore, that divide in ambition proved to be providential, for later in the day the weather turned wet and 22-year-old Morag from Leeds twice went back to the cave entrance after she and her friends had emerged at 5:30 p.m. to await their colleagues' return at Hown Gilnick. And on the last occasion, she was absolutely horrified to see the beck in full spate and covering the entrance. She then immediately took off across the fell to run about 3 miles to Yarnbury and to raise the alarm. The first Land Rover to reach the scene was driven by Stephen Butcher of Coniston. The Craven Herald reports him saying that I was 100 yards away and then I could hear the sound of rushing water. Then when my friend got out, the water was up to his waist. It was just a sea of water. This sea of water met the rescuers, which was led by UWFRA and joined by the Cave Rescue Organization, and eventually scores of other volunteers amounting to 300. By 1 a.m., the cave entrance was under 4 feet of water. A 133-yard-long by 8-foot-deep trench had been dug, as well as a small dam. However, the rescuers still could not enter until 11:40 p.m. Then, after almost 6 hours later, there were 5 bodies found, but the cave had to be evacuated with the weather worsening. The weather continued foul, and it was not until 1 p.m. on Tuesday it could be resumed. Just 14 hours later, the body of John Ogden was found in a tiny passage. The sad news was no doubt heartrending, particularly for Morag Forbes. She was engaged to David Adamson, who was the leader of the party, and they were to be married in just 6 weeks. And at the close, there was no criticism of the young men's decision to venture deep into the system. Len Huff of UWFRA, one of the leaders of the rescue bid, stated that their luck just ran out, as the weather changes pretty quickly in this part of the world. Then, 2 weeks later, on July 7, more than hundreds of potholers, with family and friends, all gathered at the tiny church of St. Mary's in Coniston for the memorial service to the ill-fated cavers. The church was fully packed, and there were many people who stood outside in the sunshine where the service was relayed. What are your thoughts on this? Did you know about the Mossdale incident? Let us know in the comments section down below. If you found this video interesting, then be sure to leave us a thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be always up to date with the most exciting content as soon as it is uploaded. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again soon in another video. Take care and have a great day.